It's time to get brutal. And hi, welcome back to St Blazey Model World. I'm Roger. If you're new to the channel, welcome on in. And in this video I thought we'd move on a notch, and in mind I think we ought to look at this particular kit here. It's another Dapol kit, again 00 scale, and it's the model garage come petrol station, filling station, gas filling station for those of us across the pond. And it's a lovely little kit. Here it is basically assembled, and it also comes with some petrol pumps that are here, not yet fully built into their stands. What we'll end up with. Is it perfect? No. Does it matter? No. Too often I hear people of my generation and the generation before me saying children these days are spending too much time on their mobile phones and their other devices. Well, stop moaning, do something about it. Get people, young people, into a hobby that really is worthwhile and satisfying. If you're an experienced modeler, also, I hope you find this video informative and helpful. And as always at St Blazey Model World, we like to open your eyes to possibilities that you may not have thought of. Hope you enjoy it. Absolutely nothing wrong with this kit. I mean, it really is a lovely little model of an independent petrol station and repair shop that you would find all across the UK. But of course, every man and his dog has got one, and they're on their model dioramas, and they all look like this. Is there anything that we can do? Well, this is basically how the finished product would look. We've got a range of petrol pumps and perhaps an oil dispenser there in the foreground, and in the background we got the garage itself. Like I said, you know, it's a lovely little kit, but we need to do something to make it our own, give it our own little twist, and make sure that our diorama stands out from the next guys. For those of you who are wondering why I've started with this rather than modifying a kit at the stage of building, well, it's really just personal preference. Once you have a structure in front of you, such as we have here, it really is a lot easier to visualize how you're going to change it, rather than looking at a load of components on plastic sprues. So let's get to it, and we're going to make some really drastic changes here. Now the blue line represents the surgery that this particular model is going to undergo, and I'm going to divide it in two first of all, so that we have a clear separation between the shop, where you pay for your purchases here, and the repair facility on this side. I've marked out a dividing line, runs along the front of the building, across the roof, and as I turn it around, round the back as well. Now the first temptation is to get out your rotary cutting device, your Dremel type device, but remember that these things generate heat as they cut, and what you do not want is a load of molten plastic. We need to try to get as clear a cut as possible on this particular model, and for that my weapon of choice is this one, the Junior Hacksaw. Give me a nice little cut, controlled speed, controlled direction, and even if it doesn't end up perfectly straight, that's not the end of the world. Well, damage done, whether we like it or not. But then again, it was always going to be that way. What have we ended up with? Well, we've got a piece here that represents our garage shop, our gas station shop. Missing a side, of course, we'll have to replace that. And on the other part, we've got our repair building. In the cutting process I knocked off the flip over garage door, but that's no big shakes. And of course this side of the building is also missing a side. And if we do end up with something like this, we've got our version of this kit that is very different to what you might find elsewhere on the market. Now just for a moment we'll put the kit back as it was intended to be built, and you can see that on the front of the building we've got this sort of stonework, breeze block work on both sides, but of course here we've got the name of the garage. But if it was just a single line building, we'd only have this piece to work with. As for this piece, yep, you guessed it, it's going to go. So once again, in a blue marker pen, we've got our cut line marked out, and it really is only a guide because we can file down and address the any minor repairs that are needed later on in the process. But let's get to it. Exactly the same as we used to split the building in half, junior hacksaw, and we're going to make two cuts, one along this section here and the second one along this section here, and remove this element of stonework that you would normally see from the front of this particular model kit. Well, there we go, that's what we were left with. Obviously we've got some filing to do here now, reduce some of this burring from the cut process. But how's it shaping up? Well, not too bad. Let's have a look as we join the two pieces together once again, just for comparison. So we're going to have our maintenance shop at the back of the building, some windows, and as we move around the front of the building, we're going to have our gas station forecourt where you pay for your purchases. This side we've got an entire wall to replace, but that really isn't a problem, because if you saw my hot tips number 6 video, you'll know that we're going to use some cardboard for that, and we already have it in stock. What could be easier? When it comes to tidying up our cut marks, I'm going to resort to my first weapon of choice, an emery board. Familiar with ladies everywhere who look after their nails, but you can get these in a bunch from a corner shop for next to no money. Why those? Well, cheap to buy, have a coarse side and a fine side, ideal for this particular application. Well, the debris in front of us is an illustration of the work we've carried out. Stage in the process is to create these two walls, isn't it? We've got to fill up these gaps somehow. And if you saw my hot tips video number 6, you'll remember that I advanced the idea of not throwing away your packaging. And here is some of that packaging that was in that video. And this is the piece that I've cut off. It's not actually very large. It's a couple of inches in height as you're looking at it. And I guess about 10 inches long. But it's enough to make the two walls for this piece here and this piece here as we carry on with these alterations. Now from here the process really is quite simple. Take one piece, this is one of them, doesn't matter which one you start with, so let's get to it. So there we are, with a simple fine marker pen I've marked out the line. Remember that when we were making this line we were working to the internal dimensions of our building, so when we cut we really want to cut on the extremities, on the outside of these lines that we've made here, here and here, and that will minimise the amount of fill work that we've got to do afterwards. Get a Stanley knife or something similar. If you don't have any, don't bother going to buy some. A pair of scissors will do, but please be aware cardboard will blunt your scissors. And the other thing that you really could do with at this point is a steel straight edge rule. I've got several of these. This particular one is about 6 inches. Got one at 12 and I've also got one at 24 inches as well. They really are ideal. They give you a nice straight cut, and of course the blade on our cutting implement, and this one's rusty but it won't stop it working, that won't deviate from the course along the side of this steel ruler. So let's get on and cut it out. So remembering we're working to the outsides of these marking lines, I place my ruler in the right position so I can see all of the marking that I've done previously. One quick stroke with the Stanley blade and we'll be all the way through this, and then it's time to trim up the sides. Well, there we are, that's one side cut, and the top as well. I should mention that I'm using a cutting mat here, and of course if you're a younger scale model maker and you're not really sure or happy, please ask an older person to help you with this stage. All that remains now is to trim up this side here, and then we'll see how it looks. Now you can see straight away that although it's a reasonably decent fit, we've got a little bit of extra material here, and it tapers off to this area here in this corner. So we'll address that. All we need to do is turn our component upside down, and from the other side it's actually a bit more visible. All that we need to do is to take our ruler, lay it across those two areas there, and we'll mark our line. And there we have it. Now remember, of course, again, we're working to internal dimensions, so we want to place our cut on this side of that line so that we leave that line visible. Okay, do that stage and we'll come back. Well, there's our wall cut to size and it's in place. I haven't glued it yet. That'll come very shortly, but you can see that as I turn this over, even just the pressure of the decent cuts that I made keeps it in place. It's true we've got a little bit of gapping here and a little bit down this side, but I'm not worried about that because once this is glued into place, it's going to be sprayed with primer, and primer, as we all know, will hide a multitude of sins. All that remains now is to complete the steps that we've just seen on the second half of this garage model, and we'll do that now, and then we'll see where we're at. So now it's time for glue, and on this occasion I'm going to go with Copydex. We're gluing cardboard to plastic, and it's not an ideal scenario, but it is where we are. So I'll start with the easier piece first, which is this piece here, and then after I'll move on to the slightly more challenging one, which is the back of what is now the back of the garage, where we've got this piece of flyaway door frame. So this is our first piece of walling glued into place. I know you can see some creasing on the cardboard. I'm really not worried about that just at the moment. And the second piece that, remember, had that door frame, well, I've used the actual glue itself as a weight to pin that down while this adhesive sets. And remember guys, the solutions, they're all around. You've just got to open your eyes, have a bit of imagination. Don't spend money on gadgets that you really do not need to buy. Well, that really didn't take very long at all. The next stage is to join these two pieces of plastic together. And don't forget, this is going to be the front and this will be the rear of the building. Now, before we go ahead and join these two bits of building together, we do have one more issue to address. As we look down here at the side of the building, we can see a gap between what are now our two separate parts, and it's the same on the other side. We could address that by gluing together now and adding some body filler afterwards, but it would be so much better if we could eliminate that gap and make use of this really high area of surface that will take our glue when we do need to join these two components together. What's causing that gap is the protruding roof line, and you can just about sort of see it there. It overhangs the edge of the building, and that was the rear of the building, and it's the same on the other component as well. Well, let's get rid of that. There's a couple of ways we can go about it. The first way we can do it is to take a Stanley knife and trim off the excess material here and here, and then file down with our emery board, or we can use an engineering file to simply remove all of the plastic that's there that's causing the problem. I'm going to illustrate both methods very quickly. So in method one, take our Stanley knife and just peel away this protrusion on the roof line here. Perhaps a little bit more. I would at this point say that having a sharp blade on your knife would help. Emery board, just take off the remainder of this material now so that we're flush with the back wall of our new garage building. Method 2, which is going to be a little bit noisier. We've got our engineering file, lay it flat on our work surface, apply our roof line and just rub. And of course that friction is now taking away that protrusion on the roof line. We'll just keep checking to make sure that we don't really go too far. Quite a bit way to go yet, but we'll speed it up and show you the results. And there we are. Now that's removed that gap in the building and we're ready to go. One of the last changes I wanted to make to this kit in its new form is to add a skylight, and you can see I've marked out there the frame. All we're going to do is drill 4 small pilot holes in each corner and take a larger drill out the centre, and we'll just trim up the edges there to make them straight, and then we'll use some matchsticks to add a frame, and then we'll spray it all in primer before of course we add our glazing as the final touch. Now if at the end of the process before painting you notice you've got 1 or 2 blemishes that you want to address, then the ideal product to use is a model filler. And here is one. This particular one is a Humbrol model filler. It's just the one I like, that's all. There are many others out there, and it's basically just a putty type material that's designed to fill gaps in models, and it really is a must-have piece of equipment. Rather than I keep saying don't spend your money on gadgets, this is a sort of thing that you need to be spending your money on to address those minor repairs while you're building your model kits. And let's not forget, some of these model kits can cost quite a lot of money. You want to get the best out of them that you can. Well, that about wraps this one up. What did we do? Well, we cut the building in half, rearranged it slightly. We added a skylight here. I put in a little piece here that hides the join between the 2 walls. What is it? Well, it could be a chimney, could be a heater pipe. We don't know, and it really doesn't matter. Once the model is in situ, what can we do? Well, we'll give it a top coat of paint, might add some weathering, and as common with these independent garages and petrol stations across the UK, might add a little bit of sort of weeds and shrubbery along the base here. The possibilities are endless. It's been a difficult one to make this. If you can, please give it a thumbs up, like. If you do wish to subscribe to the channel, please remember to hit the bell and select all. That really does make a difference as far as YouTube are concerned. Stop them removing you as a subscriber further down the line. Subscriptions are free on YouTube, cost no money. Simply means that you've elected to follow a particular channel. As always, take care, stay safe, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye now from St Blazey Model World.